Welcome to the Healing Grove podcast. I'm Dr. Kristen Ryman, an integrative holistic family physician, author of Life After Lyme, and host in this virtual space of learning, healing, and growing. I believe humans are like trees, and our physical limb is only one of many. Health on all limbs of the tree, emotional, conceptual, social, spiritual, is absolutely required for the whole tree that is you to be vibrantly well. I created the Healing Grove podcast as a place to showcase some of the world's best integrative and holistic medicine, to expose you to transformative tools and mindset shifts for all limbs of your tree. I hope you enjoy our conversation in the Healing Grove today as much as I enjoyed having it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Healing Grove podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Ryman, and I'm really excited to share a new friend with you today. Her name is Graziana Zito, and she was referred to me actually by a dear friend, Adam Berman, right? Like kind of connected us.
Yes.
And he and I have been working kind of in concert for the last 5 or 7 years, maybe just sharing patients and ideas for how to support kids who are on the spectrum, kids who are dealing with PANS and PANDAS. And so you also have a love of kids and of young moms, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to share with us today. So let me give a little background bio, and then I'm going to let you tell your story. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
So Graziana Zito is an occupational therapist, a yoga instructor, and founder of a company called Eighth Sense Wellness. She created her practice to take a holistic and individualized approach to therapy, recognizing that every person is unique and deserves the support that honors their lived experience. She works with neurodiverse children, teens, and adults, as well as pregnant and postpartum mothers, guiding them in reconnecting with their bodies, emotions, and sensory experiences. And she's especially passionate about supporting individuals who often feel unheard, misunderstood, or trapped in cycles of anxiety. Through a blend of evidence-based occupational therapy, yoga, nervous system regulation, and interoceptive work, she provides tools to help individuals regain a sense of agency, balance, and connection. And I'm really excited that you're going to be sharing some of those tools with us today.
I'm very excited too.
So why don't we start, Graziana, by just hearing a little bit about your journey and what brought you into this work, and in particular to working with this kind of population.
Sure. So I have had a very diverse range of populations that I've worked with as an occupational therapist, and just seeing what was really important over time was the value of relationship and connection above all else. And in order to build safety within our bodies, we needed to be connected. And a lot of the approaches that were taught and that I sort of was going off of conceptually weren't really working. And I just found that being with my clients in an embodied way was allowing them the space to actually heal. So I really found this. I really learned this when I was working with the children that I had at a school system. And I was working there for 2 years. I loved the kids that I was working with. They taught me so much, but I found that there were lots of limitations in what I could do. It was in a school system. A lot of these kids were non-speaking, and their goals on their IEPs weren't really matching what I felt, and what they were sharing were their true needs. So when they were coming into my sessions, we had 30 minutes together. I really just prioritized giving them the space to just be and to learn what regulation and what a sense of calm could actually feel like without providing demands or expectations. And what I saw was their capacity to really be themselves. And in being themselves, they were able to grow and they were able to do things that were meaningful for them. And as an occupational therapist, that's all that I care about, is finding what's most meaningful for the person who's right in front of me and finding ways, adapting the world to them so that way they can participate in those things. They can do what makes meaning and what brings them joy in their everyday life. So, with all of that in mind, I decided to take the leap out of the system of a school and create a space that I could follow my approach in my own way, and to call in the people that were truly looking for connection in order to grow. So I've done that and have built a really awesome practice for not only my clients, but also for myself in healing my own emotional journey and my own perspective of who I am, and who I am able to help serve.
Amazing. It sounds so beautiful. And I wonder, since you brought up how meaningful it is to you and how healing it is to you, are
Mhm.
you a person who can relate to this from your own lived experience of needing something like this as a child or as an adult?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this work actually brought that up. I don't even think I really understood my own emotional journey until I was able to see. That's why I said these kids really taught me something, to see the power of just being able to be yourself and having compassion for yourself. When I was younger, I lost my mom when I was really young. And I think that as I grew, um, I sort of took on these roles and put these expectations on myself that weren't really necessary. But I didn't know that as a child. And there are so many experiences that we all go through that we just do out of a natural response. So as I got older and I was able to reflect on these experiences that I went through as a child, I was able to start recognizing, oh, that wasn't something that you needed to hold, or that wasn't really something that was expected of you, and you put that on yourself, and now you're still holding on to that. So I was able to, through a lot of what's called interoceptive work and a lot of just moving slower in my life to be able to start to regulate my nervous system, these feelings started coming up. And I was able to start to meet myself with compassion rather than shame and rather than guilt and judgment and criticism. I was able to start looking at myself and saying, you were doing the best that you could do with what you had. And even the people that were around you were doing the best that they could do with what they had. So having compassion for myself then built the compassion I was able to have with others around me. So now when I have emotional experiences, I let them stay there and I let myself acknowledge them. I let them be there. And I don't try to push things away. I give myself a sense of grace to understand that I am a human being who goes through natural human experiences. And in doing this, I actually create more regulation for myself and for others around me.
Amazing, and it sounds so simple when you say it, but to me,
Mhm.
I've seen people struggle with these kinds of lessons and these practices and this sort of habit of reframing, input coming in from the world that's stressing you out and regulating better. I've seen them struggle with that for lifetimes.
Mhm.
How did you get this at such a young age? And did you have a team? Did you have other people you were learning from? Like, tell us about your process and how this actually changed for you.
It's funny because a lot of people will say that to me. They always say, how did you do this? How did you learn this? And I always said, I don't know. But when I think about it now, and I can really look at my journey along the way, and now that I know the neuroscience of a lot of different theories, especially polyvagal theory, I believe that we are all wired for connection. I mean, we are literally born connected to our mother's womb, and we rely on her system to feel safe in the world. So, as we are born into this world, we are essentially taught to work hard, do things on our own, make a living for ourselves as we grow up, that we're supposed to be independent and kind of know how to figure everything out along the way. But what we're not taught is that community is actually so crucial for our well-being, that support is so crucial for our well-being. And when I look back, and even now to this point, I recognize that I had so many people supporting me in my emotions that I wasn't doing it alone, and I couldn't do it alone. As a child, we don't have the skills to regulate ourselves. It's just our brain is just developmentally not there. So it's really important to have safe, what are called co-regulators in our life to help us navigate these emotions. And especially now, I'm in a relationship where I feel extremely safe and I feel extremely heard and validated. And validation is actually such an important tool for regulation. Just the ability to feel safe and to feel myself and to feel like, hey, you hear me, you're putting your mind in my mind. That has given me so much autonomy to and safety to actually go into my feelings, because it seems simple, but it's not easy to do, especially if you don't feel safe doing it. So being able to start to identify who are the people in my life that actually help me feel safe. Who can I start to who can I start to surround myself with to help me begin to grow curious of myself in a safe way that doesn't feel overwhelming or doesn't feel threatening, because we can't do this alone.
Yeah. No, we talk a lot about the importance of healing team and how our social
Mhm.
limb really thrives and requires, as a form of nourishment, a safe healing space and
Mhm.
people. There's a few terms that I've already heard you use that I know some people will understand and others they'll be new for. I
Mhm.
think regulation and co-regulation could be expanded upon, interoception, even
Mhm.
the polyvagal theory. Like if you could give some kind of inroads into understanding for those things, I think it would make the rest of the conversation a lot more accessible for some people. Would you mind doing that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to share that. So I think regulation, I'll start with regulation because it is such a buzzword, especially right now, and I find that it's often very misunderstood. Regulation does not mean that you're calm all of the time. Regulation just means that you're connected to your experience that you're navigating through and that you're able to connect to that experience with compassion and with curiosity. So, as a human being, we're all going to have moments of stress, of anxiety, of anger, of frustration. That is natural, and it's actually really important to have those experiences. But when you are a regulated individual, you are able to acknowledge those feelings that you're having. You're able to feel the feelings where they might be in your body. You're able to express those feelings, and then you're able to make a response to that feeling. So if you're in a moment of anger, you can still be controlled and regulated as you're navigating through that feeling of anger by recognizing I'm feeling really angry right now and be able to pause, take a moment to decide what you want to do next. Co-regulation is also a little misunderstood because some people think that co-regulation just means that when, say, your child is going through a moment of dysregulation, you co-regulate them and bring them back into regulation. That's one side of co-regulation. But co-regulation also happens in the moments of calm and of safety and of joyous and happy moments. It's this dance, this back and forth, and it's really all through nonverbal cues and through touch and through tone of voice, where say you have a little baby who's crying and mom comes over and starts to say, "Oh, it's okay, I'm here," and starts to pick the baby up and holds the baby. That lights up this activation in the brain of connection and releases chemicals like oxytocin, the chemical of love, to say to the nervous system, hey, you're safe, you're okay, I'm being supported, I'm being held right now. And actually lowers levels of cortisol. Cortisol is the stress response or your stress chemical. But it also happens in moments when your baby's just waking up in the morning and the baby's smiling and you go, oh, you're smiling and you're so happy. It's so great to see you. You look so beautiful. Those also light up moments of regulation and oxytocin in the body. So, co regulation is really this dance and this back and forth. And your child or you are not going to learn how to regulate if you don't go through moments of dysregulation. So, you do need both experiences to know how to use those skills, But co-regulation is essentially using the nervous system of somebody else to regulate and experience what emotions are like for you. It's really putting the mind or putting your mind in the mind of another and being able to be present in that experience.
So what I'm hearing you say is that co-regulation is essentially how babies learn to regulate themselves. They have someone mirroring back to them their experience and putting a name to it so that they can learn to do that for themselves. And I know there are some people listening to this who are going, "Oh my gosh, my mom never did that. I never had a safe person do that. Is there hope for me? How can I learn that at a later stage if I never had that, or even maybe don't even have that in my life now?" What are some
Mhm.
tools that people can lean into to learn this stuff?
Yes, and that is huge. It's never too late to learn how to co-regulate yourself. A lot of us didn't, or some people might not have experienced what it felt like to have someone else's mind be put into their minds. And you do have the power to break that cycle. And it really starts by having compassion, going back to that word, compassion for yourself. It really starts with being a parent to yourself again and being able to walk yourself through those moments of feelings that feel scary or overwhelming and letting yourself know that you're okay and that you love yourself and that these feelings are going to pass, that you are going to make it out on the other side and you're going to be stronger because of it. But again, that might feel really overwhelming to do if you've never really done that before or never had that experience. So that's where the co-regulator comes in. That's where if you have a safe person in your life now, or even a pet, even some pets or a place, anywhere or thing that makes you feel safe, that is your happy place and you feel the most yourself, connecting to those experiences more in your life, making an effort to really bring that into your life. So even if that's you love taking walks and that brings you this sense of joy or ease, making sure that you're doing that. And then while you're doing that thing or while you're with that person, acknowledging the feeling that you're having. This feels really nice. I feel at ease right now. I'm really enjoying being with this individual, or I'm really loving seeing the leaves blow in the wind outside. It makes me feel at ease. And the more you're able to recognize even those small little moments, the more your nervous system learns, okay, this is safety. And then when you're in those moments of overwhelm, you've now built the connection of, okay, I know that my body can feel safe. How can I get there? And maybe you go and use that toolkit. Maybe you go and take a walk, or maybe you go and call that person that helps you feel safe and you start to make those connections.
Beautiful. So I love the idea of building a toolbox. In my communities, we like to talk about flexing the muscles of safety and, bringing in your parasympathetic response to kind of calm yourself down. But I think one of the trickiest parts about that is learning to identify when you need the tool, right? Like
Mhm.
rather than spiraling into a headspace of anxiety or fear or hopelessness or whatever it is, how do you help people learn to know when to pull out the toolbox?
Mhm. So this is where the term interoception really comes into play. And interoception is essentially your body and brain's ability to communicate with one another. So a really simple example is if you're feeling hunger cues, your brain knows, okay, I'm feeling hungry. And then you go and respond to that cue and you eat food, or you don't, and your body has a reaction. Either way, if you eat food, you feel satisfied, you feel full, you have an emotional response to that response that you did. If you don't eat, you might start feeling hangry or upset, or you might start feeling dizziness. So it's the brain's ability to connect to the signal that's in your body, and then the skill that comes after it is being able to respond to that cue in an appropriate way. So what I do a lot with my clients, it's all about interoception and learning how to develop the skills of recognizing our internal body signals before they take over our body. So the way that I do that is by starting very simply, in the simplest of terms of going through emotions that feel safe already. Where do you feel the most comfortable? Is it joy? Is it relaxation? Even if it is sadness, some people might feel safe or they might feel like they live in a state of sadness or in a state of anxiety. And we start there. We start with wherever they feel they are living most in their life, and there's no judgment or shame. So, as a therapist, I am the co-regulator. I am coming in a space of clarity to allow them to feel comfortable talking about these things. And just as a, as a preface, I always let my clients know that they don't need to share anything they don't feel comfortable sharing. They are able to take breaks when they need to, and if something feels too triggering, we stop. We don't go into anything forced. Everything is very gentle. And the key to all of this is going slowly. So it's a process that takes time, and that compassion builds over time. So when we go into these emotions that feel comfortable talking about, we talk about what does your body feel like when you're anxious? Maybe some people will say that their palms get sweaty or their chest gets really tight. Okay, what are some things that make you feel anxious? And they'll describe a scenario. And then they'll say, or I'll ask them, what do you feel like when you're doing those specific things? So then we'll just continue to go into more and more detail about those experiences. But if that feels overwhelming, because sometimes that even might feel like a lot, we will take emotions off the table completely. And we will just go through the body individually, one body part at a time, and start to just notice. It's really mindful exercises of noticing what your body is doing in this very present moment. So, for example, we could start with the hands, and we might look at our hands and just describe what we're touching. What are we feeling right now? Starting to build that interoceptive cue of what do our fingers feel like? Are they cold? Are they warm? Maybe we'll do certain experiments and we'll put our hands under different temperature water, or we'll feel different textures, and we'll just start to talk about what does your hand feel like. It's so simple, but when we start to do that with all of our body parts, we are developing that interoceptive awareness, which then helps us connect more into our body in a playful way, in a way that is curious, that then builds that curiosity for our emotional experience. So we really can start at the simplest form of just understanding how our hands feel.
I love that you brought up the curiosity. It reminds me of one of the practitioners who a lot of the kids at the Family Hope Center have seen in advance of coming to us.
Mhm.
I'm totally blanking on her name. You probably know it, and we both know it. It'll come to us. But she's
Mhm.
a woman who works with kids who've had strokes, who've lost the
Mhm.
use of an arm or a leg or their whole body, whole side of their body, and
Mhm.
always uses this kind of curious and playful
Mhm.
kind of querying of the body. So there's never like a you can do it, go, go, go. It's more like a look at this funny little arm. I wonder what it might feel like if we just
Mhm.
move in this direction for a moment.
Mhm.
Oh, what
Yeah.
sort of I wonder, can you make the smallest, tiniest, silliest little movement with it? Oh, look at, it's very
Mhm.
sort of exploratory and low stakes. And there seems to be something really important about that.
Yeah, that is a huge part of the approach. It's being curious, saying, like you just said, I wonder what that feels like. Or I'm curious about what that feels like for you. Or I imagine, or even just modeling my own experience. Sometimes it's like, this feels squishy to me. I wonder if that feels squishy to you or if it feels like something different to you. Being playful, not really putting much demand, letting the child or even the adults, because adults are just children in big bodies, letting ourselves be exploratory and make our own choices. And in having the ability to create our own worlds helps us create that toolbox of this is what works for me. It might not work for somebody else. It might not feel like that for somebody else, but I know that this is working for me. And we start to really build that sense of self, that sense of I am important for who I am. I am seen and valued for who I am. And I know that in myself. That's where then the compassion grows, is just through curiosity for who we are without judgment. And it starts in play.
I love that, adults are children in big bodies. I sometimes
Yeah.
refer to my teenage boys and then my 20-something boys as little boys in big boy bodies because they're
Mhm.
it's clear that we're still developing. But how do
Yeah.
you how do you help an adult who maybe has trauma, maybe in some ways is emotionally stuck as a
Mhm.
teenager or younger because of that trauma? I think
Mhm.
as adults, and this is maybe just in my population, but I'd love to hear in yours too. Do you find that adults are harder to have a harder time allowing themselves to play, be curious, make it a low stakes moment than children?
Mhm.
Like, are they sort of stickier than kids?
Yeah. Some adults can be stickier and a little more resistant to it. So if they are resistant to that, I'm not going to force it. I will go at their own pace, but I will try to drop little cues of maybe just even asking them about what did they enjoy when they were a child? What were some of the activities that made them feel joyful or that they like to play with? And just having them start to reflect on that, maybe if they're not actually doing it in the moment, but we can talk about it together so they can start to think, and maybe light bulbs will come on over time, like, oh, I really enjoyed this, even if it was like playing with um, the little bake shop when you were a kid and they talked about that experience. How can they bring that into their life now? Maybe they start to do a little more cooking, or maybe they start to experiment with a different cookbook, and just bringing that into their life in a way that feels relatable to them now as an adult can be really helpful.
Yeah, tapping into creativity at any level, right? Something you're
Yes.
joyful about that allows you to sort of enter that creative zone. So
Hmm.
beautiful. Well, you've shared like a lot of ideas for things people could do, and I assume they could do these things at home without a therapist. Are there any things that people shouldn't try at home and really need someone to guide them with?
I think that if it feels uncomfortable to really tune into your emotions, if you have a hard time actually acknowledging your emotions without it sending you into a moment of fight or flight or into anxiety, that's where a therapist, occupational therapist, any type of mental health practitioner can really help you and guide you in slowly, because we are able to take an analysis of all the things that are going on within you and also around your environment. We're not just looking at you and your brain, we're looking at your holistic being that sometimes we are ourselves are not able to recognize. So we might want to go somewhere, but we are stuck and we don't know how to get there just because there might be something that's being blocked in our own vision. So when you work with another individual, they can help guide you and can help bring different pieces of reflection in that maybe you weren't able to have access to, that was blocking you from being able to get into your body in a safe way.
Yeah, yeah. And if somebody wanted to say work with you, because I suspect there are people listening to this who are like, oh my gosh, this is the person I've been waiting for myself or for my child. What are the ways that people could work with you? How are you currently working with clients?
So currently, I have both in-person and virtual session options. The in-person sessions, I work out of a yoga studio, and it's really just a free open space. It's also, I really actually value this, that I don't have a lot of equipment because I want this to be a type of therapy that is accessible and you can take it home and you don't need all of the typical OT equipment like swings and obstacle courses. You can do this out in nature. Sometimes I've even done sessions at a park if we weren't able to have a session time in the yoga studio. So those in-person sessions are really awesome and fun because the child or even the adult gets to create their own experience. And then the virtual sessions are done face to face, one to one, online, and are actually really valuable in their own way because most of the time they're in your home where you're taking it from your home. So I'm able to really see your environment, and we use the tools that you already have in your home to build that toolbox of what really works for you.
Lovely. Well, we will include all the links to how to work with you and all the different ways in which people can get in touch. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think would be really important for people listening to understand about the work you do?
Yeah, I didn't get to describe to you what the polyvagal theory was. You had asked me about it before, and we kind of got into our conversation. So, polyvagal theory is the approach that I use. It's a part of the approaches that I use for this type of work, and it really has helped me understand the nervous system in general. The polyvagal describes the nervous system in 3 different states. We have our dorsal vagal, our sympathetic system, and our ventral vagal. So this is all part of the autonomic nervous system. Your dorsal vagal is your freeze response. And for the kids and even for adults, I like to say this is our turtle zone. This is our turtle brain where we just go into full protection mode. Our body completely hides and we might feel numb to the world around us. We have our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight, or our tiger brain. This is when we get defensive, we have a lot of energy, and it can be used for good, but it also can be overwhelming. This is where you might feel anxiety, feelings of panic, feelings of complete overwhelm. And then we have our ventral vagal, which is our connected state. This is when we feel open. This is when we're able to communicate, to think clearly, to respond in that regulated way with compassion and curiosity. We're able to have access to all of that because we're feeling connected to ourselves and to our experience. So what's important to know about this, about all the different states of the nervous system, is that none of them are good or bad. And none of them are meant to be fixed or changed. They're just meant to be acknowledged and recognized. And it's like a ladder. The polyvagal describes these 3 states through a ladder with ventral vagal at the top, your sympathetic, your tiger brain in the middle, and then your turtle brain, the dorsal vagal at the bottom. And throughout our day, we go up and down the ladder. The thing about this type of work, about nervous system regulation and building our internal cues, is that we can help ourselves come from dorsal vagal or from sympathetic, that tiger brain, to our owl brain. I didn't let you know, the ventral vagal is owl brain. We can actually shift easier and more effectively up into our ventral vagal when we're in a feeling of fight or flight, or when we're in a feeling of freeze response. And by learning our nervous system, by learning what tools work for us and how we can connect to our experience, we're able to go from that tiger state. And instead of the tiger taking over our body completely for the whole day, or really creating this sense of unsafety or danger within us, our owl brain will strengthen and will come in and say, you know what? Thank you, tiger brain, for protecting me. Thank you for doing your job, but I don't need you anymore. And I'm going to take over and I'm going to help you work through this experience. And that's where that regulation piece comes in, of acknowledging the experience, not trying to fix it or not trying to change it, but just recognizing that it's not necessary to be living in that state forever, that you don't need to live in fight or flight forever. And you do have the ability to grow your skills, to find yourself living in owl brain a lot longer than in turtle brain or tiger brain.
I love that so much. And the way in which you describe it, and I'm sure teach it to your clients, is so, it really harkens back to how you started the conversation, which was all about how connection is the root of it all. I mean, you're describing ourselves as having these 3 parts of our nervous system that are truly connected to one another and can play roles for one another as
Mhm.
part of their own healing team and our healing team as well.
Exactly. And it's just building relationship to ourselves. It's building a healthy relationship to all the experiences that we go through. And in doing that, we can build relationship with others so much more meaningfully. And that's really the root of life. And in my personal experience, community and connection to loved ones who really see and value me fill my cup.
Yeah, I think you speak for all of us. And I know there are people out there who say I've never had that. And here's what I think both of us would say. It doesn't mean it's not possible. It's still there
Mhm.
for you.
It's
And
always
sometimes
going to be there.
sometimes it has to be we have to be the advocates for ourselves who
Mhm.
learn these tools and seek out the right healing team to
Mhm.
grow capacity for safety and self-love.
Mhm. You don't need to do it alone.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's a perfect place for us to end. Thank you so much, Graziana. This has been really illuminating, and I so appreciate just the way you are with people, with me, with my audience, the care and intentionality that you have brought to this conversation, and I know you bring to all your people. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm very grateful to be able to have this opportunity and to connect to your community. And I hope that whoever was listening is able to take one thing out of this that they really resonated with. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Kristen, for having me on.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Healing Grove podcast. If you liked it, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to deepen your experience further, consider grabbing a copy of the Healing Grove Playbook. With journal prompts for this podcast and 41 others, it's the perfect place to record your learnings, keep track of the tools you explore, and reflect on your own experience. Finally, it's important to mention that even though I am a doctor, nothing you hear on this podcast, whether from myself or my guests, constitutes medical advice. Any intervention you try should always be discussed with and supervised by a trusted member of your own healing team. Thanks for listening, and see you next time in the Healing Grove.